When we're talking about a lawn care and landscaping business or side hustle, we're talking about scheduling routes and crews. Like when you just get started, how are we scheduling and managing our workload with the team members that we have on a 5-day work week, so that way hopefully we don't have to work the weekend. Now, it's important to know some of the big problems that I see when people are routing is they overbook themselves, they book themselves to max capacity, and they don't know how many people they need for the actual type of work, and they don't manage the scheduling well. And what I mean by that is, like, you obviously have at this point hopefully have some recurring revenue of, let's say, mowing services. So you've got your regular mowing clients, but like, how do you input and schedule the one-time off projects, the bushes and the flower bed services and the mulch jobs, to where they don't happen every week or every month, but they still are important and have to get done? So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is managing routes and crews. So the first thing that I want to make sure that we understand here is that there are two different seasons, and I'm going to put this in green here. There are two different seasons in the seasonal lawn care business route. So you have two seasons. What do I mean by that? The off season is typically winter time, where some guys will actually shift over to snow removal or winter services type of approach. And some people just have less work in the wintertime, which is kind of that route that we choose. The second thing is you're going to have a busy season. So the busy season is typically March, April, May, June, July, August, maybe even September. Like, we're down here in Texas, our busy season 9 months out of the year, the grass is growing. The other 3 months, it's not. So we have a busy season and what I like to call the off season, where it's a lot slower. So if we understand both of those seasons, it will allow us to make educated decisions on how to schedule and route our crews best. So what we like to do is a process called the 4 quadrants. And this is especially true for our new location. So for those of you that don't know, we're starting our 3rd location this upcoming spring. We've got 1 location in profit mode, 1 location in growth mode, and then we'll have another one in growth mode next spring. But we like to set it up in a 4 quadrant mode, which means what we do in the service area is, first off, we draw our 5 to 7 mile radius, and then we find a dividing line, typically a main highway running north and south, and then we'll also look east and west and find a good middle point. Now, when we look at these areas here, and I'm going to circle or kind of shade these areas in. When I'm looking at this shaded area, it's not always even when we select our 4 quadrants, because up here might be very, very heavily populated, and so down here, so as well down here, but this area might just have like a little bit here, right? This is especially true if you're in like new build areas or new build communities. So don't just look at your service area and cut it down the middle. You want there to be evenly spread across the workload, basically in 4 quadrants is what we call that. What you would want to do is just make sure each quadrant has enough volume inside of that quadrant, so that way when you start to fill that mow route in, you have a decent size mow route for your crews. And what we like to do in the 4 quadrants, and now let's just assume that this one is actually filled in, you're not in a new build community like us, and you can cut it right down the middle. Okay, cool. So we've got our 4 quadrants. Now what we like to do for our scheduling, to keep it simple, keep it easy across all locations. And again, we're starting our 3rd location next spring, so we don't want things to be different. We just want everything the same, copy paste the model, and this is what works for us. So over here, top left would be Monday's mow route. Over here would be Tuesday's mow route. And over here would be Wednesday, and then over here would be Thursday. And that is how we schedule our recurring weekly mowing services, is we go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Now what that does is it front loads all of the work, the important recurring work, up front. So that way, if there is a rain day, let's say on Wednesday, and we have to move Wednesday to Thursday, well then maybe we can do some of Thursday and also get Thursday done on Friday. It gives us a little bit of room for error when we're scheduling, because there are things and issues and problems that will arise that you will not account for, but you need margin of error. What I failed to do in the first few years when I first started was I was like, oh, okay, so one guy can mow 10 lawns, and if it's 5 days a week, that's 50 lawns. In order for me to get 2 guys in one truck, that would be 100 lawns. Like, I just need to get to 100 recurring customers, and then we'll be great. They'll be here each day, they'll show up, they'll do the work, it won't rain, equipment won't break down, they won't go on vacation, they won't be sick, somebody won't get injured, and all of a sudden I found myself that model did not work at all. And it stressed me out tremendously because I felt like I needed to get all the work done because I had basically overbooked our staff. You never want to do that, okay? Also, with there being 2 seasons, you always want to overhire during the main growing season. There's a reason why restaurants have tons and tons of people during the lunch rush. Even though when you walk in right at the beginning of lunch, it's like, man, why are there so many workers back there? It's because they're getting ready for the rush. You should too in your business. Otherwise, you're not going to be firing on all cylinders. You're not going to be able to send out your upsells. You're not going to be making the most amount of revenue that you can per truck and per employee that you have. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is our model. We leave Fridays open. So on Fridays, we leave this open for typically our weed control visits or landscape jobs. We do landscape jobs on Friday. And you know what? If everything gets finished before Friday and we get to Friday and there's not much work, guess what? Everybody will have an early release on Friday and the guys love that, and you don't have to stress about having to work on the weekend. So what is very important when you're scheduling is less switching. And what does that even mean? What you want to do ideally is have less switching going on between your crews. So you might only be at 1 or 2 team members on your team. But if you can have one guy, only one, specifically do all the mowing services for you, that would be awesome, if applicable. If not, okay, then maybe have 2 or 3 designated mow teams. All right, now once you get more trucks, then you're gonna be looking at, all right, maybe you have a landscape crew to where they just go out and they do bushes and bed services and mulch all day long. The reason why we want less switching is because the more you have them bounce and rotate, the less efficient they are. And you as an employer, and also your team, if they're on performance pay, want to make the most money and be the most efficient with your time. So if you stick one person on the same task over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, they're going to get better. They're going to get quicker, and they're going to make more money and revenue for you and the business and be way more productive. So less switching, the better. And then the last thing I wanted to mention to you guys, hopefully reinforce you guys that are solo operators looking at advancing to 1 or 2 team members, is going to be one truck is I believe, and I've been doing this for a while, is the hardest. Having one truck is the absolute hardest. Why? Very simple. Let's take the scenario of one guy can do 10 lawns a day, 5 days a week. That's 50 lawns. That's at max capacity, and that's if he's perfect and shows up every day in a perfect world, and he's not sick, he doesn't have emotions, he doesn't get injured, and he doesn't take any vacations ever. Okay, that's a perfect world. The reality is we don't live in a perfect world. The reality is we deal with human beings. We have emotions, and people get sick, and people have vacations, and people get injured. Yeah, life happens. What I would recommend is consistently hovering around 80%. 80% is what I believe is a sweet spot. So, for example, if 50 lawns is the max capacity that somebody can do, if we multiply that by 0.8, that gives us 40 lawns. So, it gives us room for error, room for problems, room for putting out fires as business owners when things arise that weren't expected. A flat tire, the truck doesn't start, right? The battery's dead. Stuff happens. So we can't max out our routes to everybody as much as we want to. Now, the reason why I say the one truck is the hardest is because if you had 2 guys, so you had one guy who could do ideally max capacity 50 lawns, the other one could do 50, that's 100 lawns. Let's say, for example, we max them out at 80%. That would be 80 lawns per week. If one of those guys are sick that day or that week, there is 0 chance that that other person is going to pick up 50% of the workload. Because when you only have one truck, you have 2 people. If you lose one of those people, for whatever reason, they can't show up to work that day, there's no way this guy's gonna pick up the slack of the other 50% that went missing. Half of your workforce is gone. That's why the first truck is the hardest. And the reason why I think it's the hardest is because we haven't sharpened our skills enough to recruit A players. We may think they're A players, but we just don't have the reps yet. We haven't done this 100 times. We haven't hired people and saw red flags and saw yellow flags and like know what a really good candidate looked like. Because it took me a while, if you're like me. There was a point in our career that I had a 30-day turnover in our business. I learned a lot of lessons during that part. I learned who to hire, who not to hire. I've learned a lot of skills, and I don't want you to make the same exact issues or make the same mistakes that I did. So to hopefully help you get there faster, I wanted to let you guys know about the private coaching school group that myself and my partner just started. We are taking all of our brain power and pouring it into this course. This stuff on steroids is inside of this training process and course that we've built. It's nothing like any other coaching because there's so much value that goes into it. There's mentorship, there's coaching, there's weekly calls, there's monthly calls, there's SOP documentation, there's video training, there's mini courses, everything that you need on sales, marketing, systems to implement in your business is inside of that. The link is in the description below. Highly recommend go and join. For less than one cut per month, you can get access to me, business partner, all of the documentations, and guess what? If you don't get value, leave. There's literally no risk. It's normally $99 a month, but the first 500 people that sign up and join the community as the first 500 founding members will get in at $49 per month. Don't wait. It's going to fill up very quickly, and we just launched this. The official launch is going to be happening at the end of July, so make sure you go and secure your spot. Go down. The link is in the description below. Take advantage of it. Secure your spot. You will not regret it. All right. So this is the scheduling, routing, and cruise. Now to wrap this up, key points here. Do not max out your capacity, and you always want room for error or margin in your schedule. So 4 quadrants. We got a recurring Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Projects on Friday. It's a nice little sweet spot. If it rains, guess what? You can always float the landscape jobs. We don't give hard dates for our landscape projects. We literally send the customer a text and just say, hey, we're gonna be there this week. We don't even give them a day. So we can float those very easily. That's how we have found to schedule and be very efficient with our routes and crews.